Good afternoon. This is Timothy Bryan with Chemo's Den of Iniquity. Today, I have on a good friend of mine who is a fantastic artist in his own right. He does a lot of sketch comedy, stand-up, and he does music as well with various groups. I'd like to bring on the air here for you this week Nelson. Nelson, welcome to Chemo's Den of Iniquity. How are you doing today?
Doing well, Tim. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Great. Well, I want to be totally transparent to all of our listeners here this week. Nelson and I have kind of a history with each other back when I lived in Chicago. First met Nelson working with a Vet Art Project. Nelson, can you talk a little bit about the Vet Art Project, how you got involved with that? Because I know you were running an improv session that time. And I had, from some strange reason, the Cosmos said, "Hey, Tim, go to this project really quick," and that's where we first met up. So, can you kind of tell me how you got involved in that?
Sure. I'm part of a Latino theater company called Salsation Theater Company, and they had apparently we had in the past. We had done some of the stuff with Vet Art previously with Lisa Rosenthal, I believe is her name. Mm-hmm. And so Lisa invited us out and asked if we would be interested in meeting with veterans and using improv to spur their imaginations and to spur them and inspire them to communicate their innermost thoughts onto other arts and mediums. So they gave us an email. Lisa sent us an email. I answered it, and then I showed up. Funny trivia about that night, though, was that Lisa thought I was somebody else. Apparently her memory wasn't all that great. Mm-hmm. So she thought I was someone else from Salsation, and I didn't correct her necessarily to let her know that I wasn't the person she was thinking of. Fast forward from that to the Vet Art Project with you and Jessa Carlstorm, and we got together and I think we did one other item where we did some improv based work, and then I think after that we moved on to other projects. But mm-hmm. You and I met at that first one, and I showed you guys how to do improv and how to take improv to fuel your work and free your minds.
Absolutely, and that was a fantastic improv workshop that you did for us. Little did you know that one of the veterans in that audience had worked in sketch comedy in Southern Illinois, and that would have been me with a master's in theater education. I worked with the Mentos Junkies out of Southern Illinois Carbondale University, which is not known as a mecca for stand-up comedy, sketch comedy, or any kind of comedy, actually. So little did you know that you're going to run into me, and years later, here we are again. So I remember the first Salsation project that you and I worked on. That was the Salsation project where you started up in the morning, you get everyone together, get all the actors together, write your script, rehearse it that afternoon, and then perform it that evening. Do you remember that first time that we did that?
Yeah, I believe it was Salsa Sketch. I want to say 2009. I want to say somewhere around there. So Salsa Sketch is exactly what you described it. It's an all-day affair where we lock actors into a theater and write, rehearse, and perform original sketch comedy in one day. Actually, 12 hours technically, but we say one day because it sounds more sexy.
Absolutely. Definitely sounds sexy. And in that, I remember something that we still have to this day, an inside joke between you and I that we have to this day, and we'll reveal it to the world. This is the first time people outside of Salsation and outside of that project are going to know this. There was a bit in there where we needed somebody to play Obama.
Yep.
And I'm the token white guy in the group, and I'm good with that. I think Salsation is a very diverse group, and they allowed me to play with them many times. And so I became the white Obama for that sketch.
You're whiter than Obama could ever be.
Absolutely. And
that's a compliment.
Thank you so much. Maybe one day I can be the next black president. Who knows?
Well, you know what? You got my vote. You've got my vote.
Fantastic. Well, I'm going to count on your vote. You're going to be my Chicago guy or my Indiana guy.
Okay.
So one thing that I remember from that is I have a tendency to be a little bit wooden on stage, and that's what we were looking for, somebody that could be wooden on stage. And that's usually considered a bad trait to have on stage. You want to be fluid, and you want to be able to think on your feet. And I'm a little wooden. I'm not as experienced as you are with sketch comedy, stand-up, and performing live music. But you know what? Sometimes we can use our faults. Sometimes we can use our shortcomings to make something wonderful happen. And, to this day, I'm still known as White Obama, and people still talk about it. Well, people that were there still talk about it. I still talk about it.
Yes, we do.
Absolutely.
You will always go down in the annals of Salsation history as the whitest Obama and the most wooden, petrified Obama that we've ever had.
Well, you know what? I'm proud to carry that mantle. Now, Nelson, obviously this is a new podcast that we're starting up here. Our launch date was September the 23rd. And what we're going to be doing here is we're interviewing artists, a lot of artists that I know, with varying levels of professionalism. Some folks do it full time. And that's all they do. That's how they make their money. Some people do it part-time, do it on the weekends. They have a day job. And some people do it once in a blue moon. And a lot of times those folks think they don't have a creative bone in their body. And what I'm trying to do here, and I appreciate you coming on our show to help us out, is showing people that the art world isn't that mysterious. It isn't that artsy-fartsy. You can't ever get into it. You can dip your toe into it, or you can go full bore into it and make a living and enjoy yourself with it. So, Nelson, I know you have a lot of projects that you are involved in right now. You're one of the busiest men in Indiana and Chicago that I know. So, can you talk to me a little bit about the projects that you're in? I know you're in a few different sketch comedy troupes, and I know you do music on the side, and if I remember right, you used to have a podcast. So could you talk about your groups and then your music and then anything else that you're doing currently?
Yeah, I'll take an opportunity to just talk about myself because that's what I love to do. So I've got as I mentioned before, Salsation Theater Company. I'm the artistic director for that. Salsation is in the embryonic stage of writing a new sketch comedy show. Mm-hmm. I'm working with the president of Salsation, Ramon Chariez. I am shout out to Ramon. We're getting together and putting together some sketches and start looking at doing some auditions. Hopefully, we're looking maybe October, November time frame, work that December, January, February, and then hopefully put up a show in March, April time frame. So it'll be a full-length sketch comedy show. We don't have a name for it. We just know that it's going to be very full of very political things going on right now, mm-hmm. thanks to the current administration. So that's going to be a fun thing. I'm also the leader of and founder of Los Impraviachis, which is an improvised mariachi band. And we've been together for about 4 years, and we're going to be doing some shows in October timeframe, the end of September, mm-hmm. October timeframe, and that's been going along swimmingly.
Excellent.
And go ahead.
With the Los Impraviachis, I know that there was a time that you guys were doing, especially around Valentine's Day, little serenades to folks. People could, chip in some money. You guys would serenade. Are you going to be doing that in the next year?
Yeah, so it's actually a running service at this point. So we pretty much could be hired for any occasion, not just Valentine's Day. It could be for Christmas or birthdays or divorce parties. Or impeachment trials. Any of those fantastic events are reasons that you could go ahead and hire Los Improviachis to come out and do something. Either we could do it, online, which is the way we've done in the past. We'll shoot a quick video for you, or pay a little bit extra and get the real thing. We're not real mariachis. We are improviachis, which is we're actors first and comedians second and mariachis third. But we do our best to pay homage to the mariachi tradition and culture. And we're going to be investing a lot of time and effort into that this year to kind of get ourselves up to snuff, so that way we don't offend too many people watching what we do. So we've had 4 years to do it, and we feel that we need to up our game for the next year at this point.
Fantastic. And folks, you heard it first. The impeachment party, the impeachment songs. I know these guys are working on it. So make sure that you contact them. And Nelson, how can they contact you for the Los Improviachis?
The best way is probably to go to our website, losimproviachis.com, and it's LOSIMPROVIACHIS.com. And there's a form there. You can contact us through the form and order yourself an Improviachi-gram.
Oh, fantastic. And then for Salsation, how do we get in contact with you for Salsation in case we have a big company thing, or we need you guys out here on the East Coast? How do we get a hold of you?
Probably through our website. You can go to salsation.com or .org, whichever suits your fancy.
Ooh.
Yeah, we have options in Salsation.
Excellent. Now, Nelson, I know you're a musician, a very talented musician, because you can play guitar a lot better than I can. So I know you're talented. Can you talk to us about your music side that you do?
Sure. So that's a lot of stuff. I play guitar. Guitar is what I'm probably most known for, but I actually started out back in the day, back in 6th grade, on trumpet. So I was actually a trumpet player for most of my musical career, and then I picked up guitar because I wanted to get women. Little did I know that you don't get women playing guitar.
Now,
that's true.
No way. Yeah, I mean, I always see guitar players getting women, and I see bass players always getting men. So what's up with that?
That's why I don't play bass.
Okay.
But secondly, the women that I attract, I have a certain demographic. My demographic is above the age of 45, above the weight of like 210, and under the height of about 5'8". So my demographic skews bigger and older. So I get plenty of those women. But when I was a kid and I was first learning guitar, I thought if I could learn Sweet Child of Mine, that girls would just swoon because they love that song and because I'd be so cool because I could play it. And that never really came to fruition. So instead, I became a songwriter. And that kind of pushed me into joining bands in Chicago, in San Antonio, Texas, which is where I started. And then I headed up, eventually moving to Chicago in the late 90s. And I joined a few rock bands while I was out there and had to learn a lot of different instruments because we could never really keep a rhythm section, which is what plagues most rock bands. Could never keep a drummer, never keep a bass player. So I learned drums, I learned bass, and then trumpet. And then because of all the mariachi stuff, I've learned how to play other instruments like the vihuela and the guitarrón, which is like a bass, basically. But I can also play a theremin. I can play a mean theremin.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Cue up good vibrations. I'm all over it. I bought a didgeridoo when I was in Amsterdam once and learned how to play didgeridoo. And most recently, I have been competent. I wouldn't say I'm great, but I'm competent on keyboards, on piano. So, in fact, tonight, after we finish taping here, I'm going to be going over to Grand Rapids, Michigan, and performing as a musical director for an improv team out in Grand Rapids.
Oh, that's fantastic. So you're not even just tied to being in the Chicago, Indiana area. You're going out to Michigan. You're going all over the country.
Yeah, so I've been in this last year, I've been to San Jose, I've been to, Grand Rapids, I've been to Indianapolis, I've been to San Antonio, Texas, and Baltimore, Maryland. so far this year, and I'm going to be returning back to the San Francisco Bay Area later this month, as well as Texas, and I'll be hitting up a couple of places in Indiana as well that have hired me. So yeah, I am willing to travel. I have guitar ready to travel.
Fantastic. All right, Nelson, are you ready for your questions?
I'm ready.
Because I know we've been asking you questions, left and right here, but folks, what we're going to do here is we're going to call this the Satanic 7 Questions of Art. That Nelson is going to be our first guest to get these questions.
I'm glad you phrased it that way, because when trying to prep, like, what could he ask me, I was like, I wonder if he's going to go light or dark. And now you've answered that question for me, so I'm ready to answer in the most sinister voice as possible.
Oh, excellent. The more sinister, the better. Okay.
Excellent.
Here we go. Question number 1. What do you dislike about the art world? Now, don't just think about painting, sculpture, all that kind of stuff. Think about, all the comedy that you're into, the music world that you're into. What's the top 2 things that you dislike about that?
Well, the most. See, that's not going to work. I don't have a low enough voice for this. I think what the thing I dislike the most about the art world is that there's a lot of politics in the art world that they never tell you in art school, or even when you're, even if you're doing it on your own, or whatever, you're learning how to do it and working on your craft. There's a lot of politics involved in becoming quote unquote successful. Now, success can be measured anywhere from, hey, I got a painting into a gallery, to, hey, I'm on Saturday Night Live. Like everyone has their own definition of what success is. But to get to a point that others have to be involved in it, it's not good enough to be the best artist in the world. It comes down to having to know people. And for you to go bigger and better, there's a lot of investment in dealing with different personalities and dealing with different power structures in the places that you want to go to. So let's say that you've written a book. Granted, it's a lot easier now, but back in the day, you had to know a publisher. And
right.
You had to probably know an agent, and you probably had to know, somebody who could vouch for you to give you a shot at what you're doing. And I'm sure, like, the bigger book deals that are out there are still kind of work that way. There's a lot of politicking, and sometimes you could be the most. You may have something to offer through your art that is so awesome to be shared, and it never gets seen because somebody took a disliking to you or what you're representing or your ideas. And that's just a shame. It's a shame that we have to play the game. That's what I call it. It's the game of appeasing enough of the key gateholders out there to allow your art to flourish. And that's something that I don't have a good answer for how to fix it other than everybody stop being a dick. But I really wish that there's got to be a way to do this better, and there's got to be a way that we can support each other in a much better fashion instead of setting up all these gates for people to share their own art.
Understood. Very good. That's why myself, I enjoy podcasting because you can start it up on your own, like I'm doing right here, right now. Grab my friends, grab my artists, and pick their brains and see what they're doing. Speaking about books. Nelson, I forgot to do my homework on this. Do you have a book out?
I don't, but I am working on an improv book. It's going to actually be, I'm calling it a manifesto more than anything else. Over the last 2 years, I've been teaching and I've been doing workshops and things of that nature. And I come up with a lot of either unique or borrowed phrases that I feel that are applicable to really any discipline. It doesn't have to be just comedy. And I want to do it in a manifesto type style of like I got these cool sayings, and then I kind of you back up those cool sayings with action. Like, what is it that you're supposed to do in order for you to understand this saying? And I want the saying itself to be done. And I don't know what you call it. I know that's a certain art format, but where you have maybe a sentence or a passage, and all the words are in different sizes and different fonts and different orientations on the page. And so it's kind of a collage. Like, you kind of have to see what the flow looks like. It's art within itself, just of the words. Mm-hmm. And I want to create like a small booklet, basically, and call it the Improv Manifesto, and publish that. So I've been working on that for about a year.
Oh, fantastic!
And I've got about 6 pages done, because it's very time consuming to get it right. But mm-hmm. It's I have a person in one of my improv teams. She likes to meme my wacky sayings or phrases using various tools like those inspirational posters.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And she puts them on Facebook, and they're hilarious, and I love her for it. So I thought maybe a coffee table book of that would be kind of cool too.
Gotcha. That would be fantastic. So folks, you heard it first here. Nelson's got a book coming out, 6 pages per year. So, right. It's going to take a little bit of while. You got to have patience. Art takes patience. So just make sure that you guys are looking for that, and stay in tune. Maybe this could be something for season 2 where you actually bring that out. We'll talk about that in a little while.
Okay.
All right. So here's your second question. We've got 5 to go, Nelson. We've got 5 to go. We can do this.
I'm sweating it.
Okay. I can see the sweat coming down your head right now. Mm-hmm, I'm looking at it through Skype. I'm seeing the sweat coming down your head. Wipe it off. Ready for question number 2.
All right, I'm ready, Coach.
Are there people you don't tell that you are an artist? And if you don't tell them, is it wrong or bad that some artists conceal their talent?
Absolutely don't tell certain people that I'm an artist. And those people are people who do the same art that I do. I don't tell other improvisers or sketch comedians. I don't tell them I do it because I used to. I mean, just like everybody else does. When you first start out, I mean, you're just so happy to be doing your art that you want everybody to know you're an artist. Mm-hmm. And I don't tell other improvisers and comedians that I do the work sometimes, because like I said, back to the politics thing, artists, when you're in the same discipline, many artists don't know or don't have the capacity for supporting each other. And so, especially when you're doing first impressions, you don't want to necessarily put them off like you're a threat to them or to their art. And especially in Chicago, with Chicago being kind of the mecca of improv comedy and sketch, there's a lot of competition and there's a lot of pettiness. And I'm sure I'm part of that too. So the best way for me, I found out, is to come off as what I like to call the civilian, and just pretend that you're not an artist. Just pretend like, hey, I saw your show. That's really good. And just leave it at that, and don't share that you're an artist, and just kind of talk to them as a regular audience member. And then if it comes up in conversation, I'll let them know. But I've been doing this a long time. I've been doing this since 2006, 5, somewhere around there. So I've been doing this a long time. I'm considered an OG, an original gangster, and in sketch comedy. And so when I start saying, yeah, I've been doing this for 12 years, like, people either think, holy smokes, this guy's full of himself because he's been doing this for long, or, ooh, you're really old and you're still doing this. So I try to avoid all that stuff and be like, yeah, great show. Like, leave it. If they really want to know more about me, I will share it with them. When it comes to people outside of the comedy world, oh yeah, that's all I talk about. I talk about it so much that there are people who convince I don't have a real job that brings in money. Obviously, I'm doing this. I'm doing this like it's a full-time job. But it doesn't pay nearly as well as a regular 9-to-5. So I never talk about what I actually do for a living. I instead talk about my art because it's what I'm most passionate about.
Fantastic. Okay. Here's question number 3. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. All right. Is the artistic life lonely? And if so, what do you do to counteract that loneliness?
That's a good question. Yes, it's lonely. Absolutely. I find it because art is a personal expression, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you can't share, or very rarely can you share your thoughts with somebody else and make art that you feel completely attached to and feel a sense of ownership for. That's what I find, especially in comedy. Comedy is very singular. So you may be surrounded by a group of, 6 or 8 like-minded people, and you may be playing in front of an audience for, anywhere from 2 to 200.
Mm-hmm.
But you never really get the sense of, and you can connect with those people, but I've never, and this is true of just me. I'm not saying for every artist, but I've always felt that my art is a reflection of who I am as a person, and therefore, it's difficult for me to share it, unless it's kind of on my terms. And,
Right.
and that's a lonely thing because, unless you got somebody who will go out of their way to really want to be a part of your art, putting it out there beyond what you're limited to it kind of ostracizes you from the rest of society in a lot of ways. And I do find it lonely. And the way I try to get over it, I'm not very successful with it, is I complain a lot. That's one thing I do. I complain. And then after I complain, I do reach out to people who I respect, who are either at my level or above. And I try to get into their art, which is kind of weird because I feel that if I'm acting as that person that I want to come to me at some point.
Sure.
So I kind of get into their art, and when I get into other people's art, then I don't feel as lonely anymore. I feel a little bit more connected to what I'm doing, and I feel connected to somebody else's presence.
Fantastic. Still going on with that loneliness aspect here, because artists can be kind of lonely. Can art be defined for everyone, or should art be defined for everyone? So when you're doing a piece, when you're doing some music, with comedy, in my opinion, in comedy, you kind of have to. You can't be too avant-garde on that side of it, but when you're appreciating art, somebody else's art, do you want it defined for you very clearly, or do you want the artist to define it for you, or do you want to define it for yourself?
I feel like that's probably, I would say that's a mixed bag. I think that there is some art that should be defined to whoever's consuming it, and some art that's better left alone, and then some art that you shouldn't even tell them it's art, and they should figure it out for themselves and determine if it is art. So I would hate a painter or maybe a sculptor who comes to me and makes something. I can appreciate that it's art, but if I don't know exactly what it is, I may not have as much value until the sculptor tells me what this is supposed to represent, because I'm not knowledgeable enough in sculpting to know what I'm looking at, right? But there are some things like I don't know, songwriting. If I was writing a song, I might write a song, it's art, and that it has some kind of meaning, but I may not. You may not want to know what the lyrics are necessarily about. And maybe you find some value in what the lyrics look like. And sound like, and what they mean, what you think they mean to the singer, and what they mean to you, and then you come up with your own meaning for a song. I mean, if I had to take Afro Man's Because I Got High, and try to interpret those words, maybe it's a sonnet to a lost foal in the woods, and that foal is trying to get home to its mother, or it could be a song about weed. It just depends. Like, I think having that flexibility in there is important. And having giving the latitude for the listener to determine what is art, what isn't, in that scenario is good. And then there are times where it's just like, hey, listen, you're at an art gallery, and then you see a half-broken toilet on the floor, and people may mistake it for a half-broken toilet on the floor when it's actually supposed to be an art piece, right? And I think that's a good medium, a good example of, like, is this art or isn't it? And let the person consuming it determine that. And then if they want to go above, okay, this is art, what does it mean? Or try to find more value into it, you can allow them to do that. So I kind of subscribe to it depends is ultimately what I'm trying to say. Just
sure.
It depends. It depends on what kind of art. It depends on the artist. It depends on the piece. What kind of value and what kind of explanation or intervention do I want from the artist in me consuming that piece.
Excellent. All right. So I haven't asked you a tough question yet. So this is going to be the tough one. Okay. This is going to be the tough question for you.
These are all pretty hard. So
really? Okay. All right. That's fantastic. I'm going to give you an option. Do you want a philosophical question or a mathematical question?
I guess I'll go with a let's go with the philosophical because that's probably harder of the two.
Philosophical. Okay. Nelson's going. Note everyone on your scorecards at home. Nelson is going for the philosophical question.
What are my odds on answering this one? Just wondering going into this.
What are your odds of answering it?
Yeah.
100%.
Oh, fantastic! I like those odds.
You're going to answer it.
Okay.
I believe you can answer this.
It's a sure thing, ladies and gentlemen.
It's a sure thing. It's a sure thing. If you throw yourself at the ground and miss, what are you doing, and how do you continue to accomplish this seemingly impossible task?
Ask that one more time.
If you throw yourself at the ground and miss, what are you doing, and how do you continue to accomplish this seemingly impossible task?
So if I throw myself at the ground and miss, what I'm trying to do is that it is reflecting, it is a metaphor for the fact that I'm trying to do my own art. That's what that means. And how do I keep going with that? If I miss, it means that I wasn't meant for the ground at that point. I was meant to land on something else or someone else, or the laws of gravity are trying to tell me that something else is not quite right with my art. So the best way for me to pursue that is to continue trying to do it, however, learning each and every time the different aspects as to why I failed. It's a metaphor for failure.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Excellent. See, 100%. You answered the question.
I hope my odds are just that good when I go for the Powerball next week.
Well, you know what? How I do it is when I go into 7-Eleven, I ask the guy for the winning numbers for this week. Because before I just asked him for the winning numbers, and he gave me the winning numbers for the previous week or last year or, a decade ago. I am very specific about this. I tell him I want the winning numbers for this week in the correct order. Otherwise, I'm coming back the next day and I want my money back.
Ooh.
And it works.
It works
every time. Oh, yeah.
All right.
I am actually in Massachusetts right now, and I am a 56-year-old woman that has just won $760 million.
You look fantastic for your age and for your gender.
Thank you so much. Well, I did shave. I've got a little bit of a soul patch going on right now, but I did shave this past week, and I think you should. I think you should know that. All right. So we've got 5 questions knocked out. We got 2 to go.
All right.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, here we go. What is the question you are always asked that you dislike, and why do you hate that question?
So you're a comedian, right? Tell me a joke. It's a question, and it's a follow up. It's always, you do improv? Great, tell me a joke. Mm-hmm. Or you're a comedian. What show would I have seen you on? Like I love those. The real question is, will you perform for me, you monkey?
Exactly.
That's the question that they're really asking. I really hate that because people think just because you're a comedian, like you are on 100% of the time. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of comedians, and I would say I used to be that kind of comedian, who are just on, like no matter what, they're always looking for the joke. They're always cracking wise all the time. Like, and those are the dudes that you just want to push into traffic. Mm-hmm. We just like, can you be serious for one time? Seriously. So people think that like we're always in the mood and we're always looking to perform, and there are times where it's like not appropriate, like if you're at a funeral, maybe that's not the time to make a joke.
Usually not. No.
Not usually. Well, it depends what kind of funeral, and who it is.
Exactly.
But I hate that, like, a lot of that, like, spontaneous performance thing. Like, it's a loaded question because they're kind of asking you to fail. They're looking for you to fail, and they're saying, oh, well, if you're really funny, you can come up with a joke right on the spot and make me laugh. And if you don't make me laugh, you must not be very good. When in fact, like, coming up with jokes and coming up with something appropriate isn't easy. It's actually, there's time, there's method to it, and a lot of people don't know that. They think that we just go up on stage and start making jokes up, and many of us do, but the guys who are really good at it have been working jokes for a long time. Same thing with a song. It's like, you don't walk up to, oh, you play guitar, okay, play me something. Like, you rarely say that to somebody. Or, oh, you're a cook me something right now. And so that always kind of chaps my hide a bit, because art takes time. Good art takes time.
Right. Excellent. All right. So your final question, if you're ready for it.
I'm hoping I'm doing a good job, and I'm glad you picked an odd number, because that way if I did some good and some bad, I have a chance of pulling ahead here.
Exactly. Well, right now I've got my scorecard all set up for you, and so far you're 5-1.
Okay, 5-1.
You're
cool.
5-1.
Okay.
So this one is going to, other guests that we have here are going to have to beat your record, because you're 5-1 right now.
Okay.
Myself, I was 3-4 on the last podcast. So
wow.
you're I know it. It's my podcast, and I was 3-4. How do I get 3-4 on my own podcast, my own questions? Don't know. Don't ask. It was a bad week. Okay, it was a bad week. I'm a Cubs fan. I'm an Arizona Cardinals fan. I'm used to losing, even on my own show.
It's the curse of the Billy Cardinal.
It must be, absolutely. All right, here you go. Now this is to put you at 6-1.
Okay.
Or 5-2. It could go either way. If money were no object, if time were no concern, if resources were unlimited, what project would you attempt? And the second part of this is, if all negative factors were eliminated, would you allow this to be your only work that you were known by for the rest of eternity? So it's a two-parter.
Okay. Well, that's an easy question. So hands down, what I would have is I would have my own school and my own theater. And my school would cover all kinds of theatrical and film and TV based tutelage and education, and then I would have a theater that would showcase the work that the students perform, as well as outside groups. So I would have my own second city, effectively, is what I would have. And no, absolutely not. If I did that, I wouldn't be satisfied, because I'm an artist and I'm broken. So as a broken artist, I could never fill my soul with goodness. It's a black hole vacuum that just keeps sucking in negativity. So to offstave that, I would definitely move on to something new. I would like probably at either expanding that school into a series of schools, or I will look at other disciplines that I'm not necessarily very good at, that I would be interested in, such as, like sculpting or painting or writing. I would include probably part of that initial school. But just things that I'm not good at, and start bringing those things in there as well as just developing kind of a network of instruction that would allow people who attend my school to either get college credit or transfer to schools, and they would be accepted, that kind of thing. And I would go down that way and just try to build like an infrastructure of just like pushing art to become more important than some of the other stuff that we cling so much value to right now, like war and
finding out where Colin Kaepernick is going to be a quarterback.
Absolutely. So I think the biggest lesson that we take from that is just like, I wish when I was in my teens that I had been pushed personally to pursue my art first and foremost, whatever makes me happy, versus getting a job and working a 9 to 5. Don't get me wrong, I'm appreciative of my 9 to 5, and it's allowed me to do what I do. But maybe I would have been happier overall as a human being if I had struggled for my art a lot sooner. So, starving and living out of my car, isn't very attractive when you're my age, but maybe when I was a lot younger, that has a lot of value. Even in the corporate world or the non-art world, there's a lot of value to that. So I would build schools to kind of foster that whole like, hey, listen, your art can hopefully get you to a point that you're sustaining yourself, but number two, you're getting your art out there.
Excellent. Now, here's the bonus question to this, because when you said you're going to start up a school, immediately what comes to my mind is basketball team, football team, hockey team, and what's your mascot?
So I'm thinking the analogy for my school here, it would probably be a football team, and our mascot would be the Drowning Badgers.
The Drowning Badgers. Okay.
Yeah, the Drowning Badgers, because badgers aren't known for swimming, and I figured that they're drowning all the time, so they've got to fight for their own survival and fight for what they believe in. So they're always fighting the water, and so they'd be the Drowning Badgers. And it's a football team because I've been watching a lot of what is it, Last Chance U on Netflix, which is fantastic if you haven't watched it. I find out myself having to deal with a lot of the same things that the head coach has to deal with, but with my own actors and with my own productions and with myself as well. Try to be a better person and be a better artist. So there's a lot of analogies between coaching football and being a director and being a writer and things of that nature.
Absolutely. Well, Nelson, I definitely want to thank you for joining us here on Chemo's Den of Iniquity. I can't wait to see you in our second season when we'll try to start up a school on a podcast. I think we can do it. If nothing else, it'll be the Drowning Badgers football team, and we'll have a story about the Drowning Badgers football team.
Yes.
Sounds like a plan.
And our fight song will be something like something like that. I'm gonna work on the theme song for a fight song.
Absolutely. So for next season, folks, you're going to hear it first here. The Drowning Badgers fight song, the theme song, brought to you by Nelson. Nelson, again, how can people get in contact with you? How can people view your art? Give me a rundown of a couple of the groups that you're in and your music. How can I get in contact with you?
Probably the best way to do it is go to improductions llc.com. That's improductions llc.com. And that's a production company I started back in June of this year to kind of consolidate a lot of my artistic efforts. It's a management company. It's a blog for theater owners. It's a hub for things like audio design and videography. So I'm going to be expanding that to also, bring in my personal podcast, which is the Musical Chairs podcast, which you can find on YouTube, and where I basically sit down and crack wise and improvise jokes off of musical events, things going on in the music world. And so that's been going on for the last couple of years at least. So I'm going to be consolidating like all that stuff in there. And I've got my other groups, Makeshift Up, that's with an F, Makeshift Up. And they're a short form improv team in Indiana, and the Tony Stanzas, which is the musical improv team here in Northwest Indiana, and Los Impraviachis, which I spoke of. So all of them are kind of under the Improductions LLC umbrella. And I'll be bringing in the podcast and my blog and a bunch of other stuff there. So visit improductionsllc.com, and you can get dates there. You can get more info on the teams and see what's going on.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Nelson, for appearing here with us this fine day. Folks, go check out Nelson's website there. Make sure that you go ahead and do that. We will see you in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks with our next podcast. Nelson, we're going to see you next season, I hope, with the Drowning Badgers theme song. And I definitely want to thank you for joining us here today. Nelson, any parting words for our audience as you leave?
Do your art.
Fantastic. Folks, do your art. Thank you so much.
Right, thank you.
Have a great day.